Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to echo the sentiments of the Lieutenant Governor and my colleague from St. John Harbour. C'est un honneur et un privilège à servir les gens de ma circonscription de Saint-Jean-Est et spécialement tous les gens partout la province. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll keep my comments short. I'll try to keep myself to time here a little bit. There is a reception at Government House. And if there's anything that I've learned in my 13 years of public speaking, is that you never want to be the last person speaking and holding people back from getting some food. So I won't go into the level of detail that the minister did, but she did a wonderful job. So I think it behooves us all. We all understand and recognize as members of the House that none of us get here on our own. C'est à cause des efforts de nos familles. C'est leur appui. Ils sont la raison que nous sommes ici. They're the reason why we're here. So I want to take a second to recognize my wife, Mary. She is my rock, the absolute pillar that I stand on, and I'm able to continue to do the work every day. Mary, thank you. She is my heart, Mr. Speaker, and I'm so grateful for her. Mes enfants, ils sont ma joie. À cause d'eux, j'ai l'espoir pour l'avenir. So Alicia, Connor, Olivia, thank you for being the best kids of It's a long journey from 2010 till now, 13 years, and I'm here because of the work of a lot of people. I have to recognize my longtime constituency assistant, Carolyn Cook, one of my first supporters. Her and her husband, Bobby, they've been with me since day one. She has just recently retired and well-deserved, and I want to thank her for the service that she's given to the people of my riding for all of the years of dedication. So, Carolyn, thank you very much. I have to recognize Jake Stackhouse. When Carolyn retired, Jake jumped in there, even though he knew he was going to be going back to school, and held down the fort in my constituency office until Faith Nagel, who for a long time worked for Rodney Weston, a federal MP. Faith is awesome. She's keeping things going and keeping things rolling for the constituents in my office. But I do want to thank Jake for his time and Faith for her service as well. So thank you both. There are a lot of people on our campaign teams, and I'm no exception. There's my sister Susan, my sister Sandra, Sandy Bastrash, Don Dowling. Although a bit of a Freudian slip, Mr. Speaker, I actually did campaign with him for Rodney Weston for the Conservatives, so it's an honest mistake. So yes, he's very, very flexible. Carolyn, Bev Moore, everybody who's been involved in my campaigns, I really appreciate it. But I have to give a special shout out to my EA, Adam. Mr. Speaker, everybody here knows that I went through a battle with cancer. There was nobody who was more present outside of my family, more present, more supportive, more there for me. He saw everything that I went through and stood by me through it all. He's been an excellent friend, and I can't thank him enough for the work that he's done. So, thinking about my riding, you've often heard me say, if you've been a member of this legislature for a while, that I often talk about St. John East as being a little bit of country in the city. We have this wonderful riding where you have large, treed, mature lots, people living in harmony with industry, and I'm going to speak to that in a second, but we've got this wonderful, wonderful community. We've got different areas that are very clearly defined, and everybody works hard. They're hardworking people. When I start from the end of my riding, the eastern end of my riding, we start with the City of St. John water supply. So we have beautiful lakes starting right there. The very first thing you see when you enter the riding is the beautiful lakes. First, second, third lake, Lake Robertson. We move into the community of Loch Lomond and Lakewood Heights, and we get into Champlain Heights, a wonderful community beside the refinery, Forest Hills, where there's all kinds of parks. We have the field house down there. So there's all kinds of leisure activities. We have Little River Reservoir with its trails and a beautiful lake for swimming. So we have lots of things to be proud of in our riding, Mr. Speaker. At the other end, we've got people who own horse farms right there in the middle of the city. So it's a little bit of a different sort of feeling than most urban ridings that you may find. But I often say that you can live your entire life in the riding of East St. John. It doesn't matter if you want to talk of education. You can educate yourself right from kindergarten right up through to post-secondary education, right there in the riding. And actually, I've done it. I've attended just about every school there is, not because I was put out of them, but because I actually managed to graduate and move on to the next level. But at the end of the day, this is a wonderful opportunity that we have, and I have to give a shout out to Mary Butler. Mary Butler from NBCC, she's the CEO. She's the CEO of NBCC, and I had the absolute pleasure, with the help from the member of Portland Simons, to be able to announce a major upgrade to the campus in NBCC of $25 million, which is very greatly needed. We need laborers, we need people who can work outside of those, we'll say, traditional white-collar jobs and do those labor force jobs that we so badly need. And this investment in NBCC is going to help continue to contribute to our labor force in the future. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to other important pieces of infrastructure in my riding, the St. John Airport. I am so bullish on the St. John Airport. The potential that airport has is absolutely incredible. Probably not well known, but it is the second largest landowner, federal landowner, in the province. So Base Gagetown is the biggest. St. John Airport is the second largest federal landowner in the province. Has about 1,000 acres. And the potential that airport has to be able to change the landscape of our city and indeed our province is absolutely incredible. We've got the port, we've got rail, we've got the road system, we've got an airport system, we've got everything that we need in St. John, and that St. John Airport is going to be a key contributor to what is going to change the face of our city. So I just want to kind of give a shout out. I actually promised them that I'd wear my YSJ socks, and I'm not going to lift my leg for everybody to see, but I do have my YSJ socks on today. So I'm very happy to support that. YSJ also is an anchor airport for huge businesses that contribute massively to the GDP of this province. I'm talking about Cook Aquaculture, I'm talking about Irving Oil, I'm talking about JDI, Moosehead Breweries, DP World, Crosby's Molasses, Innovatia, Lorneville Mechanical, all businesses that use our airport as an anchor for their businesses when they're traveling. So an incredibly important piece of infrastructure. One other thing, though, that I think is a salient thing to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is they have a service with PASCAN. And this might not be perhaps very well known, but that airport, when I was going through my chemotherapy, that particular kind that I was taking only has a particular shelf life. It only lasts for a few hours. So it has to be flown in from Montreal, and these folks fly in. It doesn't matter the weather, the time of day or night. They fly into the St. John Airport, and I got to receive those chemicals in the St. John Regional Hospital to save my life and help me win my battle against cancer. That's how important this piece of infrastructure is to St. John. Thinking about the Loch Lomond Villa, one of the largest senior care residences that we have in the province, a leader in their field. They're the ones, I got to be on the board when they started their Radiography on Wheels project, which is now, as you've heard from the minister, has now morphed into a provincial program. So the Radiography on Wheels project was an opportunity to try to help seniors who perhaps need an X-ray to be able to do that in home where they live rather than being loaded into an ambulance, taken to a hospital, lay there for however long it takes to get their scan and then come back home again. This project was so successful I want to thank the Minister of Health for his efforts, former Minister for Social Development for her efforts on this file as well. This is a game changer for our seniors in our province and the level of care that we can give them in home. And that's all due to the work that started at the Lochleman Villa. Again, we talk about St. John East being very rural, even though it's city. Talking about large infrastructure, we have the refinery. Employs about 4,000 people. It is one of the largest hydrogen producers in Canada. So, absolutely. So trying to be part of that transition and making sure that we can offer green energy alternatives to folks, that refinery is absolutely key. Again, another massive piece of infrastructure. We have an industrial park that sits right beside that, which a lot of those businesses serve and help and supply the refinery with its needs. So, I talked earlier about Champlain Heights and how these are folks who live in harmony with the industry that's right beside them. Wonderful group of people. I sit on the Champlain Heights Neighborhood Watch Committee, and we meet monthly and we talk about ways of how we can improve the lives of residents in Champlain Heights. And the refinery is a big partner in that. So I think we have to recognize that it is possible to work and live together, whether it's heavy industry, whether it's residential. Thinking about the business class in St. John East, we've got Randy DeFazio, wonderful community guy. He owns Lochleman Mitsubishi. We're talking Sean Fillmore, who owns On the Vine. Tony Moore, who owns the Power Store. At the end of the day, these guys have decided to create a business, run it right there in East St. John where they live, and so they give back to their community at every chance. There's never been a time when somebody hasn't picked up the phone and asked them for help and that they haven't been there. And those are the kind of people that we have in our business community in St. John East, and I thank you all for that very much. So I think that gives a fairly decent high-level overview of what we have to offer in St. John East. Again, you can live every aspect of your life, from an education perspective, from a work perspective, from starting a family and living and growing your family, to activities, sporting activities, leisure, recreational activities. It can all be done in St. John East. So I've got actually right now the largest riding geographically in the St. John area, but we're always welcome and open to bringing more people. So if any of you want to move to St. John East, come on down. I would love to have you. So now I'm going to move a little bit to some comments around the speech from the throne and the difference in what I've seen here since 2010. So 13 years, a long time. In that span, I've seen a big change in this legislative assembly. I have to give credit. It started out very contentiously, and that's the model. That's how this thing works. But I think we have found that really good place of where we can disagree but still manage to respect each other and manage to work together. I think of the standalone Child and Youth Act, Wellbeing Act that we did. This legislative assembly worked together to create a massively important piece of legislation in a way that was never done before, and I just have to recognize that and make sure that people at home recognize that it was because of the people in this room working together that our children have better protections where they need it than what they had before. So just a recognition to the entire legislature for that. The Missing Persons Act, changes to the Missing Persons Act, very particular and important to me because there was a person in my riding who went missing. And so the resulting changes that are being made to that act hopefully can help other families avoid what happened to the person in my riding and the tragedy that came at the end of it. But those are just things that kind of come to my mind in the moment. But there are many, many, many other examples of this House when we went through the pandemic, how everybody pulled together in this House for the benefit of New Brunswickers and worked together collaboratively to make sure that, things were done in the best interest of people. It still gives me shivers to this day, because I remember walking in and the Premier saying, yeah, we're going to go do the budget today, and 9 minutes later it was done. It was an incredible thing to be part of. But again, that was part of the work that was done by this Legislative Assembly, and I, as Government House Leader, have been blessed to be able to be part of that. In terms of where we've come from, 2010, started in the Alward government. We spent 2 years of that time coming out of a recession. So the last 2 years of our mandate, we spent the last 2 years of the last 2 years of the Graham government, first 2 years of the Alward government, we spent trying to come out of that recession. And because of the actions of the previous government, they left a huge bill of hundreds of millions of dollars that came on our books that we had to try to work to bring down. And when the Premier was Finance Minister, he held the line, we worked diligently, and we were on track to bringing ourselves back to a sustainable position. There was a book written, Over the Cliff. It very clearly said New Brunswick is this close to becoming insolvent. There were headlines that clearly said, whatever New Brunswick is doing, you do the opposite. That was the state that we found ourselves in when we came in as the Alward government, and we started climbing out, and then there was a change in governments. And from that change in government, and I'm just, again, going off the top of my head, we had an increase in HST that affected absolutely everybody, especially the people who could afford it the least. We had seniors asset grab scandal. We had issues around procurement. So there was an issue with snowplows, as I recall. And we had a snowplow operation here in New Brunswick that lost a bid by $1,600. It went to a Quebec company, even though the government knew that it was going to cost New Brunswickers more in the long run. Thinking about road salt. Who thinks about road salt? Not one bit of it came from New Brunswick, but we made a change with the procurement program to make sure that the salt on our roads comes from New Brunswick, gave us more jobs, gave us better service, and ultimately better service to the people of New Brunswick. So those are absolutely... we talk about where we were at and how New Brunswick was a model for why you don't do anything the way New Brunswick does, and now we've changed to this is the place where people want to be. When the Premier started out, he made it very clear that he's not here to mark time, he's here to make a difference for the people in this province. And I'm proud to say that when you look at New Brunswick now, we have an increase in immigration, we have an increase in our GDP and our revenues, we're financially more stable than we've been in generations, levels before not seen. At the same time, though, we've had a social focus. We've made sure that we can take care of people by lowering taxes on the people that need it the most. Frank McKenna shut down the Housing Corporation, and we stood it back up. So when I look back on the Gallant government, they added over $900 million, over $1 billion in new debt on the backs of taxpayers of this province. And I'm proud to say that just recently, we have finally paid back the bill of Brian Gallant, and we've got ourselves on a fiscal sustainability track that's going to benefit the people of this province. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm just using those very high-level comments to describe... Factual. High-level, yet factual. Very good point. This is history. Well, I know they're chirping a little bit, Mr. Speaker. They love me so much that, they just can't help it. But, at the end of the day, all this is to say is that there is a stark contrast in how you manage. We've gone from a situation where the answer was, let's take more from taxpayers, let's take more from seniors, let's give back less to the people of New Brunswick, and we were not seeing the results. We had a point where there was parity between public investment and private sector investment, and you heard through the throne speech today that we've increased that by about 12 or 14%. I can't remember the exact number, but we now have private sector investment outstripping public sector investment, and that is a good sign for our economy. When you look at historic changes that we've made, our forestry strategy, for the first time in history, it's added a conservation element to the strategy to make sure that our forests are sustainable long into the future. That's not something that's happened before, Mr. Speaker. When we look at some of the challenges that we have in education, a few years ago, we were trying to figure out how we close down schools. And now we're having a problem with schools being overpopulated and having to open more. So I think, Mr. Speaker, and I don't want to go on too much longer because I know people's bellies are rumbling. You know you're doing good when both sides clap at you, right, for what you're doing. But that being said, Mr. Speaker, I think that the track that we're on in this province is proven. I think that people can see and feel the difference in this province. There's an energy, there's a dynamism, there's a willingness, there's a want to be part of what's happening in New Brunswick. And that's all part of the work that this government has done as a team from day one. And if we can continue to do that, this province will continue to grow, will continue to benefit, will continue to be better, will continue to be a light for other people to want to come to and to be part of it. So, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I will say New Brunswick needs us, and we're up to the challenge. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion of the member for St. John Harbour. Thank you very much.